Welcome to Memorial Cooking Innovations. I'm Tim Scallon, registered dietitian and nutritionist, and our resident cooking expert joins us once again today, Chef Mike Hodgkins.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You know, Mike, it's always great to have you on the show because, you know, with your background, you bring some real interesting things to the show. Like, for example, you spend a lot of time cooking on the East Coast.
Yeah, I grew up in Portland, Maine, and cooked all the way to Tampa, Florida.
So, Mike, what do you like about food?
Oh, besides eating it, I think I like preparing it and just create things with it.
Yeah.
Be creative. You know?
So it's a way for you to express your creativity.
It's my hobby, my job, it's my life.
Well, you know, I can appreciate that, and of course, the more I've worked around chefs, the better I get at cooking.
Yeah.
I always like to cook, but
Right.
you know, the more I get better at it, the more I like it.
Well, that's what I say. It's the more you do it, the more you experiment, the more you like. The biggest thing is some experiments don't do well. It's an experiment, but you have to make sure you write them all down because the ones that do right, you want to make sure you can copy it again.
You know, any food person, any person who works professionally in food, I've heard them say this many times, that when food gets in your blood, you know, it's hard to get away from it.
Yeah, once a foodie, it pretty stays with you.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about writing down ingredients. You know, I've learned that sometimes I'll make a soup, and if it turns out good, and wife Kathy particularly likes it,
Right.
well, I've got to write those down so I can do it again.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so you're preparing a traditional soup for us from the East Coast today. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, it's called the Senate bean soup, and it's from basically from the Senate.
Okay. So Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I spent 17 years on Capitol Hill, and we had to make this every place I worked. You had to have it at least once a week.
Okay.
You had to. It was just, that's the way it was.
So you've made this soup a few times.
Yeah, I have a lot of times. And in fact, it's given me a chance to play with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I've always thought that, you know, being a chef, you can take a little poetic justice.
Yeah.
And the recipe I've come up with, I think, is pretty well liked. Yeah, pretty well liked.
All right, well, let's get started.
Well, Tim, I think the first thing we do is start chopping vegetables to saute them off.
Okay, all right.
And that is probably the first change in the recipe that I made is on the original recipe, it says dump everything in the water and let it go at that.
Okay,
But,
so you're gonna do your different procedure on this.
right.
Okay.
I found that when you saute the vegetables, they have a lot better flavor. It's like when you take an onion and you bite into an onion, it's going to be very brassy, very
Yes.
bitey. But if you take and saute
Strong.
like and if you go to like a fair or someplace where they have sauteed onions on the grill,
Yes.
they got a sweet taste to them.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same thing that happened with peppers, carrots, onions, celery. It all works the same way. When you saute it in a little bit of oil, it'll bring out a little bit of sweetness.
Okay, and so
And you'll want that later on, you know, in the soup.
okay, so caramelized onions would be an example.
Exactly.
Of that.
Now, in
Okay.
this case, though, we do not want to caramelize anything.
Yeah.
We just want to go, and I'm adding about a tablespoon of oil,
Okay.
olive oil preferably.
Okay.
And we don't want to caramelize anything. We don't want the brownness. What happens is the little brownness things, they float to the top.
Yeah.
And
okay.
we don't want that.
So you
that
just
evidence of that.
You just want to soften them.
That's
So
right.
you're
Yeah, make them a little
sauteing-
bit transparent.
You know, the tradition of the Senate bean soup, this is actually part of our American food tradition. And, you know, you were saying that you made this soup every day for 17
Once a week.
once a week for 17 years. Well, you know, when you read about the tradition of Senate bean soup, you know, they serve it in the Senate, the restaurant of the Senate.
Pretty much every day.
Yeah.
It's expected.
Now, in this, when you look up the traditional recipe, basically this is a soup of navy beans, ham hocks, and onions, garlic, and I was surprised to find mashed potatoes in the traditional recipe.
Right. I think in the traditional recipe, they use mashed potatoes as a thickening agent.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, but you're actually not going to make this recipe according to the traditional
No,
recipe.
I found that mashed potatoes is a lot, you know, why bother?
Okay.
Because if you take a diced potato, a reasonably small diced potato,
Yeah.
by the time the beans are cooked,
Yeah.
the potatoes will be disappeared anyway.
Okay.
So,
So why-
same procedure, but you're using real potatoes instead of dehydrated.
Okay, and so in this recipe, you're actually changing the procedure. You know, you're doing a different procedure, and you're adding some non-traditional ingredients. Like, for example, good shot.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, carrots and celery are not in the traditional recipe.
Right, but most of your soups, especially your French soups,
Yeah.
they have what they call mirepoix. And
Okay.
mirepoix it just was an easy way to say carrot, celery, and onions.
Okay.
It's basically,
So this
the
is a
three
cul-
vegetable, it's a base.
Okay.
So,
So this is a culinary term
Yeah.
for celery, carrots, and
onions.
onions.
Yeah.
And that goes in just about any soup.
In just about any soup. And
Well-
they could put spices, I mean, a chef he could change the ingredients to his mirepoix, but those three are pretty much
That's the
solid.
basic. In
Yeah.
the
In every
traditional
kitchen, it's just something easy. Make a mirepoix for your soup,
Yeah.
or your gravy,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And well, of course, also this is adding color to the dish.
Oh, yeah, it's really colorful. It's pretty.
And anytime you
More
add
nutrients.
vegetables, that's right, adding more nutrients.
See, I'm learning from you. So,
There we go. Well, you know, it's a two-way street.
yeah,
You know, I feel like since I've been doing Memorial Cooking Innovations, I've been like a chef apprentice.
yeah. Well, I've learned so much nutritional values of food.
Well,
'Cause, you know, back when I started, it was basically heavy cream and butter and everything.
yes.
Now
Yes.
it's only a half thing. So I still have to go some ways, but
Yeah.
you've shown me some ways to make it a lot more healthy and not change the flavor.
So our viewers are not the only people learning about food from Memorial Cooking Innovations.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of neat.
Well, it's, you know, anybody who thinks he knows everything doesn't know very
Isn't that
much.
the truth?
Yeah.
Ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth?
That's right.
Okay, so you're sautéing your vegetables,
Yeah.
and so you're going to. I see you got some garlic there that you're going to add.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I should be answered. Yeah. We've added 1 onion,
Okay.
2 small carrots,
Okay.
1 poblano pepper. That is something I've changed since I've been here in Texas,
Okay.
because the poblano pepper has so much better flavor than a regular
Yes.
green bell pepper.
Yep.
And so I've made that adjustment for that.
And I noticed when you were preparing that poblano, you seeded it
Oh,
before
yeah.
you put it in.
It's not a Mexican dish. You don't need the extra heat.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
just want the flavor of the pepper.
Well, and what I've noticed with poblano, I'm like you. I started using poblano too. It's on my grocery list now.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is some of those poblanos are hot and some of them are mild.
Yeah. I think it depends on the size, but I think
But
they're
if you-
wonderful either way.
Well,
you
if
know.
you seed them, though, you don't have to worry about that.
You don't have to worry so
because the
much.
hot's in the seed. Now, this is a real different
This
ingredient.
is one I was going to stop and
okay.
show you.
Okay, tell me.
The cabbage is one that's very good for you.
yeah,
You shred it up.
yeah.
By the time the beans are cooked, it'll disintegrate. It'll just
Okay.
go right in, but it'll give the broth so much body.
Okay.
You'll know exactly what I mean when you try it.
Now I want to talk about, you're referring to, we kind of referred to changing the procedure on this, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about how that really changes the outcome of the dish. Like, for example, you just said that as this cooks with the beans, it's going to disintegrate.
Right.
Well, that's a difference in procedure. In other words, in the recipe that I wrote, and you know, we talked about this.
Yeah.
You basically cook the beans and get them done, and then the last 30 minutes you add your vegetables.
Right. And this way it gives the broth
Yes.
more flavor.
Yes.
So when you take a spoonful of this soup, you're going to have the beans in a very flavorful broth
Yes.
rather than a colored water.
Because they've cooked down and
They're
cooked
down
together.
and cooked into it. If you notice too, I made the vegetables fairly, not huge, but you want it where
You dice them.
they're bigger than what you want at the end, because they're going to go down a little bit.
Yes,
As they cook, they're
okay.
going to shrink a little bit, and you still want them visible in the soup.
And when you add this cabbage, you're adding that for a background flavor.
Right, it give it body and a flavor. Same idea as the potatoes.
Yeah.
Same
Okay.
same thing as, it's just a little bit more, and it just enhances the flavor so much.
And every vegetable that you add to this soup just improves the balance of the final dish, the
Right.
nutritional content, the fiber content. Okay, and also you said something that I thought was interesting, this cabbage cooks down and you never know it's there. So if I have someone in my family, like my kids, for example, who don't want cabbage, I can sneak it into this soup.
They'll never know. They will never know. Guaranteed, they will never know.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a great way to. That's a great way to do that.
Any vegetable soup, these ingredients will work in any vegetable soup.
Okay.
So because again, it just gives the broth the flavor.
Okay. So not just a bean soup. When you're making any soup, do
beef,
this
vegetable,
miracle.
chicken, vegetable, anything you want to do.
Okay.
This is a fantastic start. That's why I started doing it, because it worked in so many other soups. Why wouldn't it work in this soup?
Yeah, yeah.
And it does. In my opinion, it does.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, now I noticed that, so you've got this about where you want it, or?
Yeah, it'd be pretty close. It's pretty close, yeah. You just, excuse me. You just want the onions. You can see how the onions are a little bit clear.
Yes.
And that's about all you need to do. So, because you don't want to brown them.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do now is add my tomatoes.
Okay. Now, this is another non-traditional ingredient. When you told me to add tomatoes to this, I thought, I've never heard of tomatoes in a Senate bean soup, but tell me about this.
Well, when you have just a traditional vegetable soup, what's the background flavor?
Yeah, it's tomatoes. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Well, and
it's a beans, a vegetable, so it's a bean soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, vegetable soup.
Okay, and so there's a couple more points about these tomatoes. You're using a canned diced tomato. Now, why wouldn't you use a fresh tomato in this?
Well, this time of year, you don't know what you're going to get.
Okay.
And with a canned tomato, they pick them at their peak of flavor.
Yes.
And
the cannery's right there.
The cannery's right there, and plus being canned, they'll go into the soup so much faster. You haven't got to worry about the little skin, pieces of skin on a real tomato.
Yes. And actually, the fresh tomatoes in the grocery store right now really don't have a lot of flavor.
No, they don't. I don't call them real. They're not real. They're not real tomatoes.
Well, and of course another point about any time I use canned tomatoes, that's a chance to choose the one that says no added salt.
Right.
Because canned tomatoes that have added salt, it's actually quite a bit of sodium in those.
Right. And since I traditionally use the ham hock, that is salty, so you got to make sure you want to keep all of the salts away as far as possible.
Okay.
Because you don't know, if I add any salt at all, it'll be at the very end.
Okay.
Because you don't know how salty the ham, but the flavor of the ham hock with that smoke flavor really adds to the beans.
So I may not even need any salt in this.
You may not need any salt at all.
And if I was using a broth in this, now I notice you have beans in water there, is that right?
Well, there's a little bit of broth there because the beans, like when
you soak them?
We did a faster version of soaking the beans.
Oh, okay. Tell me.
There's two ways. You can do it overnight.
Yeah.
But how many people know that tomorrow morning or tomorrow lunchtime they want soup?
Yes.
Now.
Yeah. They
haven't made their mind yet. So the traditional way of doing it overnight just takes too long.
Okay.
So they came up, and that wasn't me. It came up with a idea of taking the beans, boiling them for about 2 minutes, leaving them in the hot water for about an hour and a half, and that would be the same as doing it overnight.
So it's like a quick soak method.
Right, and I put my chicken broth in that.
Okay.
So I can, so you won't be sucking the flavor out of the beans, you're putting flavor into the beans.
Into the beans, I see, okay. So. And see, you can use a low sodium chicken broth.
Yes.
And there again, that makes it the soup not too salty with the ham hocks.
Right, and then so I'm adding my beans.
Okay, ooh, this is really going to be good.
And you see how pretty it's getting?
Yes.
It really gets pretty.
And I'm looking at this and thinking nutrient content. This is going to be so nutritious.
Oh, this is a home meal, a whole balanced meal with a piece of cornbread. You're ready to go.
Oh yeah, I was thinking even
a little pepper.
Yeah, little black pepper. I was thinking in this. What if you serve this, the main dish soup? Okay, now
These are my diced potatoes.
Diced potatoes, okay.
Yeah. Now you don't want to saute them.
Okay.
Because you don't want to, if they get crusty, they won't disintegrate.
Yeah, so
or at least they'll be it won't be good.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it.
You want them to melt into the soup, just like the cabbage.
Into the broth, yep.
Okay. And so I was thinking, like when we serve this soup as a main dish soup.
Piece de resistance.
Say that again?
The piece de resistance. I'm probably saying it wrong.
No,
but
that sounds right.
It sounded good, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Got to bring those French terms in.
Yeah, the ham hock is absolutely wonderful. And you can always take, after you get done cooking, if nobody grabs it first, you can take
Yeah.
the meat and just put it back into the soup with just the meat.
So pull it out,
At the very
carve
end,
off
at the very
after it's
end,
done.
when it's done, you can just take the meat and pull it off.
Okay.
And just kind of
Dice it up or crumble it.
just like a barbecue.
Okay.
It'll be just disintegrate, and you
Okay.
just put it right back in, so you get little pieces of ham in there.
Yeah.
But it's not the boiled ham,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
natural ham.
Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Okay, and that brings up another point, another way that we could vary this soup, and that is, if I didn't want to use ham hock,
Right.
ham hock is salty, you said it's a
Yeah.
cured meat. I could use, what about if I diced up some fresh pork loin?
You could do pork loin, you could
Okay.
do chicken. I mean,
Okay.
it does treat, but that's the benefit of a soup, or the luxury
Yeah.
of a soup.
Yeah,
Do it your way.
yeah, yeah.
You know, it's
What if I had the family pack of pork chops and I saved 2 of them and cut
there
those
you
up to go in the
There you
soup?
go. Or if you want to be bad like me,
Yeah.
maybe a pound of andouille sausage wouldn't be too bad either.
Yeah, it would be good in there.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that.
No, that'd be bad for you. But it would add the
That-
Cajun flavor to it.
It would.
Yeah,
That-
it would southern it up.
Yes, it would.
Yeah.
It would southern it up.
Yeah.
All right, now you've got some diced parsley. You're going to do that at the
I'll
end?
do it at the very end because the parsley, after it cooks, it just
Okay.
goes away. So you want to make it pretty.
So
You want it to
now,
be pretty.
so now we're ready to
Right.
cover this and cook it?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
We take and cover it up, and in about an hour, well, an hour and a half minimum. But if this would be a good time right now to take it out of the pot,
Yeah.
put it into a crock pot, and just
Oh.
forget about it for a while.
Oh,
Because
okay.
the longer it sits, it's like spaghetti sauce. The
Go to
longer
work.
it cooks, the better it is. I'll do it the night before for the next morning.
Yes.
Or next
okay.
lunch.
So if I've got company coming in, I put this together the night before, put it in the crock pot.
Right. Right.
Okay. Well, Chef Mike, a lot of people don't cook because they either don't want to take the time
Yeah.
or they just don't know where to start in learning to cook.
Right. Well, soup is a good place to start because it's very forgiving. You basically add the flavors you like. There's no chemical balances to worry about, and it's just so forgiving.
So it's not like making a souffle, for example,
Right.
where you
Any
have to
kind
worry.
of baking, we have to worry about chemical balances.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing you have to remember is to write down what you do so you remember to make it again.
Make it the next time.
Right.
Yes, in fact, the last soup I made for Kathy, she liked it so much that I did that very thing. I
Yeah.
wrote down, okay, well, so I can remember
Right.
to do this again.
Yeah.
So what we have in front of us is the ingredients. If we were going to make a vegetable beef soup from
Right.
scratch, and we want to compare that to a ready-to-serve, heat and serve can of soup,
Right.
vegetable beef soup. Okay, so Mike, if you were calculating the cost per serving of your homemade soup, what would you estimate the cost to be?
Let me see, that'd be about 6 serving. I'd say 18 cents, 15 to 18 cents a
Okay,
serving.
15, 18 cents. We'll just say
Right.
18 cents per serving.
Okay.
Well, this convenience item
Mm-hmm.
costs 84 cents per serving. So clearly we have to give round 1 to the homemade soup
Right.
and wins
Right.
by a pretty good margin.
Right.
18
Yeah.
to 84 cents. Okay.
Yeah, well, you're paying someone else to do all the work
That's right. That's right. When I could do this in my kitchen.
very easily.
Okay, so round 1 goes to the homemade soup. Now round 2, Mike, how many minutes, how long would it take you to prepare a homemade vegetable beef soup?
Oh, it's pretty simple. I'd say 30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay. Well, this is an easy one. I mean, all I have to do is pour this in a pot and heat it up.
Right.
You know, it may take 5 minutes, maybe 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we clearly have to give round 2 to the convenience item, but
Right.
there is one other factor to consider in that.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Like, what would that be?
Well, the amount of what you make here, it wouldn't matter if you're making 1 serving or 10 servings, takes the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So you can make more servings and then freeze it for later.
Yes.
And then you'd have your convenience food made by yourself.
Okay, and so if I get more than one meal out of this, then I take the minutes it took me to make it, 30
Yeah.
minutes, divided by the number of meals. If I get 2, that's 15 minutes.
Right.
Well, I'm at 5 or 10 here.
And so there's not much difference.
It really isn't, because I'm cooking ahead.
Yeah, you're just thinking ahead. Right?
So we're going to be fair in this. We're going to give round 2 to the convenience item.
Right.
But there is a caveat
barely,
there.
yeah.
It's not by a wide margin. Okay, so Chef Mike, in a homemade soup or a canned soup, which one would you say has more flavor?
Oh, no question. Your homemade soup would, because you're making it to your own likes, so you can take out ingredients, put in ingredients, or raise the amount of the ingredients that you like. So you're making it to your taste. That's a standard recipe. It is what it is.
So if I like more garlic, for example, it's nothing to add more garlic to
Right.
my soup. Or like you
Right.
said earlier, I can mix and match different ingredients.
Right.
Whereas this, it just is what it is.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so we're going to give round 3 to the homemade soup. And that's not surprising, really.
Right.
Okay, nobody's big surprise on that. All right, now comes the last and final round, and of course this is my favorite round,
Yeah.
and you know what round that is.
It is nutritional.
Nutrition, yes. As a registered dietitian, I
Right.
have to be interested in
Right.
nutrition. So in this round, I did nutritional analysis on the homemade soup, and of course it's provided on the facts box in our canned soup. So on the homemade soup, it's not surprising. Actually, in the two soups, the calories are roughly equivalent.
Okay.
But you first start seeing differences in the amount of fat. There's more fat in the canned soup than there is in the homemade soup. And you know, that's likely to be because we can use lean meats in a homemade soup
Right.
that you don't have that option in a canned.
Right.
The real difference that comes out, and it just blares, is the amount of sodium. In the canned soup, there's 890 milligrams of sodium. In the homemade soup, there's just 85.
Right. It's about 10 times the difference.
10 times more
times.
sodium in the canned soup.
Right.
And then another difference that's not that explicit, but it is a difference, is the amount of fiber in the soup. In the homemade soup, there's 10 grams of fiber. In the canned soup, there's 3 grams of fiber. Now, why is it that the homemade has more fiber than the canned?
Well, you're getting most of your flavor from the actual vegetables rather than the onion powder, garlic powder,
Yeah.
all the little seasonings.
So, yeah.
So that'd make a big difference.
So,
Yeah.
so with those fresh ingredients, you're getting not only flavor but more
More
fiber.
fiber. And one thing too that you mentioned the high fat content. The one benefit of making it for yourself, a very good benefit to make it yourself, is using something like olive oil, which is very beneficial.
Healthy
versus
fat.
we have no idea where that fat came from, and it's probably natural.
Yeah, it could be like beef tallow,
Beef
for
tallow,
example.
yes.
So beef tallow clogging my blood vessels, or olive oil helping to clear them out.
Right. Then
Okay.
that'd be a big difference.
So we have to say the clear winner on this is the homemade vegetable beef soup. In summary, the clear winner here is the homemade soup for 3 out of the 4 rounds that we checked. And so it's just like we always say here on Memorial Cooking Innovations.
The flavors and the freshness.
The flavor is in the freshness.
Well, Tim, I think it's got about 20 more minutes for the beans, but I want you to give you a try, see what you think.
Okay. All right. This is beautiful, Mike. All right. The flavor is definitely there. You know, I don't think we need any salt.
No, I think the ham hock did a good thing to it.
I think you're right. The beans need to cook a little longer.
Yeah, I like them mushy. Yeah, I like it nice and mushy.
Okay. Well, while these continue to cook, there are some very important reasons why we should be eating beans more often. It used to be thought that the health benefits of fiber were limited to lowering cholesterol and improving constipation. Well, now it's recognized that fiber plays a much more active role by feeding our healthy biome, the bacteria that live and grow in our intestines. In our gut, there exists a whole ecosystem of microorganisms that are referred to as the microbiome. This biome consists of beneficial and harmful microbes that constantly are battling each other. When the good guys win, we're healthy. When the bad guys win, we get sick. Growing research is pointing to a whole host of chronic illnesses and conditions that seem to be connected to a healthy or unhealthy gut biome. Since the 90s, studies have correlated a healthy biome with improved immunity. More recent studies suggest that the health of our gut may play a role in diseases like diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, and perhaps some cancers. A poor mix of microbes in the gut may encourage obesity. A new study found that eating less fiber and more sugar is associated with more disrupted sleep. The foods we eat also feed our gut microorganisms, and what the bad guys like is very different than that of the good guys. The bad guys like concentrated sweets, and they like fried foods, and they like other high-fat foods. You know what the good guys like? They like fiber, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. So it's not surprised they're the good guys. So it's not hard to understand how current trends in the diets of industrialized nations have contributed to increased health problems. It's not just about calories and weight gain. We also need to win the battle in the trenches to improve our overall health. Concentrated sweets means sugary snacks, desserts, and sodas. Fried foods, well, that's easy to identify. Now, other sources of fat include meats, cheeses, sauces, gravies, dressings, and condiments. Do I have to be a vegetarian? No. But choosing lean meats, not fried, most of the time, and managing the serving size so as to include other plant foods in the meal will improve our microbiome and our health. Replacing concentrated sweets with fresh fruit can help reduce sweet cravings and feed the good guys. Feeding the good guys means eating vegetables, fresh fruits, and whole grains every day. Look for whole grain cereals that have at least 5 grams of fiber per serving and that have the fewest ingredients listed. Fewer ingredients means the cereal is less processed and closer to the original grain. 100% whole grain breads contain all of the original parts of the grain, and good choices have 3 grams of fiber per slice. The best source of fiber among vegetables is legumes, that is, beans and peas that we shell. Bean soups, like the one featured today, are a good way to include legumes and other vegetables in a single dish and that limit the meat portion in a low-fat meal. If you're a number counter, most adults need about 30 to 35 grams of fiber per day. Otherwise, just focus on increasing your plant food intake and reducing sweets and fats. And remember, when the good guys win, we win.
Well, Tim, it looks like the soup's just about ready.
It smells wonderful. I wish you could smell this. You know, Mike, you were talking about serving this soup with a piece of cornbread. I love that idea. What if we were to put some collard greens on the side?
Oh, that'd make it a complete meal.
You know, we did a recipe in January of 2010 on Memorial Cooking Innovations for collard greens. So look that up on CHI St. Luke's Health Memorial website. It's a great recipe.
Well, you know, Tim, back in 1940, this soup sold for 15 cents a bowl.
Yeah?
And now it's selling for $3.60 a bowl. The kicker is, it still costs 15 cents a bowl to make it. So someone's making money.
It's a popular soup.
It's a popular soup.
Well,
yes.
as tasty as this is, next time you're touring the Capitol, order a bowl of Senate bean soup and tell them that you learned about it on Memorial Cooking Innovations. Mike, what do you think they'd say?
Well, they'll probably say Memorial Cooking Innovations is changing the world one bite at a time.
Memorial Cooking Innovations is made possible through the generous efforts of Brookshire Brothers, a celebration of family and community, CHI St. Luke's Memorial, the Polk Education Center, Sodexo Food Service, and the City of Lufkin, KLTX Channel 15.